Thus I have heard. At one time, the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of Vulture Creek Mountain with a great gathering of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the samadhi of the many aspects of phenomena called profound appearance. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son of the lineage train who wishes to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva answered the Venerable Sharadvati Putra with these words. Shariputra, those men and women of the lineage who wish to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should look at it like this. The five skandhas should be seen purely in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form also is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, and having no characteristics, they are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no phenomena. There is no quality of sight and so on until no quality of mind and no quality of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance and so on up to no old age and death and no exhaustion of old age and death. In the same way, there is no suffering, no origin, no ending, and no path. No wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide by means of the profound perfection of wisdom. And since their minds have no obscurations, they have no fear. Transcending falsity, they attain nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times have relied upon the perfection of wisdom and have become true and complete Buddhas of unsurpassable, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the profound perfection of wisdom, the mantra of insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for it is not deceptive. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Teata om gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhi soha. Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and said to the bodhisattva mahasattva noble Avalokiteshvara that he had spoken well. Well done, O son of the lineage, it is so. O son of the lineage, since it is just so, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Sharadvati Putra and noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva and the entire gathering, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One.
Lozo gyana buje doze yana chuje yangde song. Dodo je do nye mo nye no le je ja do zhe je. Mare me se do nye nyungo. Jenye jenze re do no. Dene do je sa je do ze yin den le zo ja se do ye go. Jodo jodo junye jende dale min jombe yano de arabazana 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 Zeden jeje chenro geze dale de mo me barose Kada denje jonglo do boy lo de bobe no do ya shu ya me ya do do ya ro ya ne 多觉进步的心多觉强，就在的罗波当那罗。边军中边不动阿地上，鸟人心老居了所望的，上不同面一年当着的，秋天的月的当着边边，在所各所的年所年光，要军是边居了所望的。遥远月面雄杰的捉拿，大王抓把这边可就见。三界观众跑跑有些说，三毛大月觉了所望的，协助当边充满阿的想，高当天边面包中的见，念就那些过去所那所，高当那么那那所望的，看见心的自己中阿梦。我到这边，我说家早见，到我这边到我给住见，要是就把见了说我的，要说个的那么多坚强，刚了刚的些年去做呢。就当天幕幕中是这边，只见那么那那说我的。让将所着跟了道也明，别上他把这边叫我求，这边这边到看这个也，现在些年弄了说我的，借我跟多样到那么多，这边去这边了老世界。撒当那就有点绕多的，多就讲给个牛头肉，三节就做节就那想就不多多年就说，老爷去节就别做那节。罗罗平时上节如果修上节就做节就那想就不多多年就是老给姐姐这边做那节罗罗平时上节如果修上节就做节就那想就不多多年就是老给姐姐这边做那节，罗罗边些上节如不有。哎呀，哎，哎呀，那这个我看了什么的？최근 기대서 내 애네 지금咱们那个老师跟都到了没到一个최근 기대正过了的최근可以去正过了최근可以正些的生计了최근可以正过现在的那지 대녀와 샤와녀와 지진거네 생지 류터 제는마도 베데 고셔샤네 생지 류터에 제레면도
So here we are listening to the teachings of the Dharma to create a spiritual environment or Dharma environment. So in order to create a spiritual environment or the Dharma environment, it requires certain degrees of contentment, because without having a contentment, it is not that easy to create a Dharma environment. Because when speaking about Dharma environment, we're speaking about how to bring about the change of one's mind or the subjugation of one's mind. Subjugation of one's mind or the transformation of one's mind must be done on the basis of laying a very strong foundation of contentment.
이게 러브에 가르치는 것도 주보대 다는 것도 강가 취셔서기 아니 단 전전라서는 되지는 해도 주보해고 정제 선바텔 해빙 해봐면도 와 인자네 이지미지 가르다고도 세대 아니 장기 생데 가데도 내단 가르치긴도 아니 가르치더라도 세 카랑나로는 딱에서 최기 지어 연하면으로 와.
So this is how we should always turn inward as a practitioner of the Dharma, because if one is unable to turn inward, then it is not necessary that whenever you're physically somewhere, and that doesn't necessarily be there mentally. So you probably in taking a part or you're participating in listening to the teachings of the Dharma physically, yet at the same time, you are mentally somewhere else. So therefore, it's important to examine our own mind. Where is our mind? Is the mind really paying attention to what the teachers give, what kind of teachings that one's teacher is giving, and how your mind is paying, is one's mind is paying attention to the teachings of the Dharma and so forth. So this analysis of one's own mind right from the beginning of one's listening to the teaching is crucial.
다들 뭐것이 뭐지? 다들 그 지정하네. 랑게 된전에 뒤징어서 차제 나와나기. 다랑게 된전은 가되니라. 전부 투병하고. 아니 시제 되전 다송 신비 넘버를 예지라. 안텔라 있는 어르주가 남아놓지 권등이지. 아니 받지.
So having withdrawn one's mind inwardly, one then visualizes Buddha Shakyamuni in the space before oneself and surrounded by all other lineage gurus of the stages of the path to enlightenment.
아니 저 랑데 집에 지장체 그러와 아니 지 대원대지 동해 면대면이 리 양수 접어서는 가세요에서 장가정이나 딱 상마제네 상마제비반에 랑이 파도래 양수 접어대 아니 대원대지 동해 면대와래 텔레 정가 지세신 기시버 개념 인자네 된적인 바 강시지라 아니 대화 데이터로 뭐 아니 동해라 가시 조시된 로능이 리연서도 아마 되나 강자 단데서 건가 된지기 나와서 버지는 주네 시기의 원에지 지 상추 생다 된지기 전에 지만에 나와서 버지를 제토로 잖아 다들 제가 인다 생각이 냥들을 예비소지 채용비 소리지로 지 칼라면에 된저 양지 개개 전부터는 채용 소리지로 된지기 인제다 아니 지 세와기 내지 랑게 센데 인제는 제위 상황도 거지네 아니 지 선제 강가를 맞지다 자디 아니 연조 아지 저들에서 강화해 버들 몇바지 재미디 오늘 세지 구여를 저와 뇌지 구도에 몇 전체네 그만 니스티 되겠다.
So then here being yourself in their presence, including all sentient beings. When speaking about all sentient beings, we're talking about beings who have not gained state of enlightenment, including all those beings. It is a countless, innumerable beings. In other words, including oneself, entire sentient being without exceptions, who are remaining within this unenlightened existence. And by visualizing that and reflecting one's mind upon how all those beings as oneself, they are not having a desire for sufferings and having a genuine desire for happiness, yet at the same time, at the same time, they are lacking this, the skillful means of how to achieve causes and conditions, how to gain a causes and conditions which give rise to happiness, and how to gain a causes and condition which eliminates the suffering and so forth. By understanding the situations, one must cultivate a genuine motivations and aspirations, such that how wonderful it would be. May all those beings gain state of enlightenment, and how wonderful it would be if I be able to guide all sentient beings to the state of enlightenment. So it's as if that you are actually going somewhere and receiving guests, so that you are actually being in this unenlightened existence and receiving all those unenlightened beings, and genuinely out of your compassion and loving kindness, and leading them to the state of enlightenment. With this motivations, let's take a couple of minutes to meditate.
아이, 들려야지, 들려야지. 나 들려기 끊어 집어지는 거네. 건선 봐셔야 주. 아니, 상조는 저리 봐. 주네.
With these motivations, the teachings that we are receiving today is the great deities on the stages of the path to enlightenment, Ajahn Lam Rim.
사이 사제 경험도 시험 다 주변담이 사게잖아요. 주인가도 주인님만 따버리니까 좀 거잖아요. 사제 창성원 진도고 했지. 근데 제단 제와이나 지 디자든 야보이나 사제만 정유디 고년 더 상행 요소도 바데 샤건 진도고 했어와. 되게 주변담이 사게 되는 인사로 사제 그런 거.
So it is a custom of giving the teachings of this great teachers on the stages of the path to enlightenment. Prior to explanation, the actual explanation of the teachings, the master, normally goes through the outlines, the entire outlines of the Lam Rim Chenmo, the great teachers on the stages of the path to enlightenment.
다자이 사지 시체 아니 주분 좀 받으면 신지 밥이 채워 소나 아니 가서 주대 송바보대네 가르치여래 선에 저거는데 덤버토베 엄보네 아니 영문만 좀 봐지 미버제 아니 라미 고속도제인데 나 제체.
So then out of four major outlines, the first outlines begins the greatness of the authors given in order to show the teachings as noble souls. So here it actually emphasizes on the reflections of the great teachers, beginning from Buddha Shakyamuni all the way to Lama Tsongkhapa and reflecting upon the qualities of the body, speech, and mind of all those great beings.
다 당할 기바치비시 추지 차와서는 고대와 시소나니 고신이 된신에 해서되는 주 손주에는 고방제 봐도 아니 간사치 아니 상제 양내 지름 봐 아니 만화와 티샤니지라 아니 랑르친비 추지 차와서잖아.
So then the second outline is showing the greatness of the teachings in order to engender respect for the teachings. So here now, think about the contents or the subject matter of these teachings. So beginning from proper reliance on one's spiritual guru, all the way to the state of unity, or in other words, the state of great enlightenment.
다 사지 손바되는 예시 제다시 왔으니 제 제다 주변 담배 손지 세나리 라리 코나 사지 지야 제나로서나 아니 가사 능게제 뇌지 교송보 대진 리시 주된바 소야다 아니 조치쇼 단나가 저기 경원대주 아니 경원주변으로는 아니 주된가 강송바되는 시라 제미제네 자네 되니만이만 공대되네 야리할 로고에 지래도.
So then the third outlines on how to listen to the teachings in which both teachings and its author are great. So for that, normally one must listen to the teachings of the Dharma and with the devoid of three faults, and relying upon the six aspirations.
다 수시에는 거 그거였습니다. 다 그거면도 세초에. 다들 자이 사제지 받에 담방은 좀 아마 제때 되는 거 같아요. 담방이 아니 너번 사제살아 같이 그래서는 좋았던데 아니 도마 아니 랑제자와 신년 때 아니 때는 뭐 제다지 이런 봐서 라유데 용수조버들 라반은 제시해서 줘.
So here now then the fourth outlines is the sequence in which the disciples are to be taught the actual instructions. So when it comes to these outlines, and then again one asks a question to oneself, what kind of teaching that one may find, what is the subject matter of this particular teachings? When it talks about the sequence in which the disciples are to be taught the actual instructions, what is meant by the actual instructions. Again, here the actual instructions is such that beginning from practice of proper reliance upon one's spiritual teacher all the way to the state of enlightenment.
다 담방은 전화만 제대로 이런 발라니 말이다. 먼저 때내로 제대로 이런 거니지. 다 때내로 제대로 이런 발라니 대대는 님보내 비시 교와다 님보 제단에 비추니지. 다 도모리사. 다 님보 제단에 렘비추들라니 라지 나자라 님바지서다 님보내 증거지. 다 도모리사. 다 님보내 증거나서 주변 청년다 대모연 라지를 만나서는지 주변 제다 대모연 주변 챔피언 라지를 만나서는지 다 도모니들서. 다 주변 챔피언 라지를 만나서는지라서 대전은 주변 고 담바 센제 하나된 센데 제다 집에 센제는 쇼발을 호세지. 다 도모니들서. 다 센제는 쇼발을 호절라 송 센제는 호발을 호고 비전세 호발을 레발을 호고 산제문도 받대바 호발로 되는 바니 시바지. 나제 다 도모니들서. 다 호발로 되는 바니 시바니 대바치 멋질라 호세다 제바드 대바치 멋질라 제바드 도제 대바로 쓰이지. 다 동보라 송 상선제 로발로 한대 장와 전에 저세제 나가서 손에 제단에 비추지. 다 도모니들서. 단의 손에 제단에 비추라니 관로로 비제 델로반에 비추 델로로 비제 바지. 다 도모니 다 델로로 비제 발라니 슈바질라로 제다 제바드 파세 타마니라로 쓰이지. 다 되는 거 도모니들서. 다 맞아 파세 타마니라로 쓰이 생각달라 니리 그니 세죠. 니 세지만 나서 신의 좀 말에 신의 나도 그런데 배 아니 되니 띵인지 괜히 되시대 대봐 신의 나도 뭐 아니 나도 뭐 Teninga Gangubi Jensen, and Korean Bitse, Lobby Bas, Tachavamadu, Tatina Sanchuke Sang, Dambazone, Nijesel Lobatelani, Chubachilla Hotel, the Chiba, the Passion Tamaniel Hotel, no Yen, Maso, the Passion Tamaniel Hotel, the US, Shaman.
Having received the teachings on instructions on how to cultivate bodhicitta and receive the bodhisattva's vow, one then engages in receiving the teachings on the general practice of the bodhisattvas and particular practice of the bodhisattvas, which is the last two perfections. So out of last two perfections, we are on the perfection of concentration, concentration of the serenity and insight. So for that, as we have gone through these outlines during our last sessions, begin from the 6 outlines, the benefits of cultivating serenity and insight, and showing that this too includes the state of meditative concentrations, the nature of serenity and insight, why it is necessary to cultivate both, how to be certain about their orders, how to train in each. So out of this, so we are on the first.
당마저 집어도 파신 타만을 파신 타만님보다 상대지 파신의 싫어지 파신로와 니노는 시비가라 신내다 하도 시기도 왔을라나 아니 다가랑 아니 상대지 뒤비니 신내다 아니 가서 싫어기 뒤비 아니 하동세네 아니 파신 타만이데 파 은주로이나 고아들레로라.
So it says that we're on the last two perfections, practice of the instructions on the last two perfections, which is perfection of concentration and perfection of wisdom. However, and we are actually, why, if this is so, then why we are on this, the practice of serenity and insight. So because this, all the concentrations are included within the serenity, and all the wisdoms are included within insight. So it is therefore we are, the teaching is given under the category of the serenity and insight.
this takasing aso cause for saturday lato ye mo shi be kala any do ye long dong any ti katu de xie son ba da ro so.
So we are resuming our teachings from today. It's by reading the citation from the sutras.
this lato se de so che shu de yile jiba jin ju gue ye jin zhe de mo che de song du lato se de xie xie long de.
So insight, in this particular context, the insight is maybe mostly referring to engaging with one's chosen object or chosen object of meditations with analysis.
그게 된다도 셀 타요도 xie son ba da ro ji de lato so so to bi shira nyu sa me ba shin de se wa shi ba de thon ne jana ji khen bo ha shan ke do de e mi xie xie ma ne gong be ji xie ta de de ne to ba kan yin tang ji chen ji de zone ne so so to bi shira do de jiang yi le me xie ba sa mi de gong ba de ba ta ma ti be de da xie so lu de ji san dong ba ne xie de ma o so tang o so ma tang.
So we're reading the text of Lam Rim Chenmo. It's on the third paragraphs, beginning from third paragraphs on page 16. It is said that the Chinese master Hashang, having seen the sutras, very clear and undeniable explanation that insight is discerning wisdom. The discerning wisdom, exclaimed, I don't know I don't know how this can be sutra. And he kicked it. He did this because the sutra's statement did not agree with his claim that since all conceptualization of the sort involves an apprehension of science, so you should dispense with discerning wisdom and meditate on the profound meaning by not bringing anything to mind. This approach has great number of adherents.
dan dindri ye kangen chi di chonso no ye ba de do nga so bebi chonso na senare chonso no la kangen de shu ji ye bi ko la gang yin na jo gang yi bi chere jo gang yi ba kan she chelo to ba kangen le pa ri ja re ma to ba yin na chen chen yin bi pa ja yin bi cha re ene che ye ma she ba de to ni gang gu sen de ji xian ro de shu chen bo shu ji shu ne da di xi je lo mo bo shu ji chang ge de je de yin sa ro.
So this is why Lama Tsongkhapa is citing from many different sources, such as sutras and treatises of the great beings, for the many who are actually following the Sashang's viewpoint of one-pointed meditation. So without any, if you look at the Hashang's standpoint, that all kinds of conceptions are said to be eradicated because he recognized and he identified them, Hashang identified them as all those conceptions are said to be the obstacles for one's spiritual development. So therefore, all of them need to be eradicated. So in order to negate such standpoint, Lama Tsongkhapa is often citing from many different sources of the Buddha's teachings, because there are many who are actually following such standpoints. It is for this reason Lama Tsongkhapa is cited from many different sources, authentic sources.
Teche lu de jisen ro ma shin do ma nang song do a de ko na peche de tanta yo sa ro gang jang de sa la jian yi la ma shin de gu re sing da tanta pyo gang ji jong mo bo yo sa ro.
There are still many in the Tibetan practitioners who are actually following this focusing on nothingness or meditating, single-pointedly meditating on nothingness.
Today, nga so ge de yang kwa jin be kron ji yi le me shi be zhong zhong gang ji ge ma de se wo ji yi le me shi be de gang ne lo le nyong de ne ni ge ji ni ba ne pa ni la tong de wo ji la je ba chen ne ju go de ma do ji yi le me shi ba san tang de wo ji le ba kron la la chong ji je de wa yin na me de ku ba so ni so xia de ma de ya jian de ma so de wa.
So here now what we're saying is now we're not actually completely and utterly negating the practice of nothingness here, concentrating on nothingness, because first, what we're saying here is now just mere, meditating on nothingness alone is not an ample practice to bring about spiritual developments. Because once you are able to stabilize your mind on the nothingness, one then need to, shift one's meditations on analytical meditations, in other words. So this is how we should go, because not just mere emphasizing mere practice of nothingness.
Teche ta den re jin de che shu ne de me ye man ro sa ma re yin na ta da nga so pe pe la to ba thang chi chen si re seng da pe ji ye ji ma re ro ma to gang je de ji gang je bi ka le che ye me she ma gang je na ma to she jo sung je cha wa na gang to ba thang ma re seng da ta da le yo do.
So although in the Tibetan Buddhist practitioners, we may not find. Yeah, so at this time, we may not find by saying that all conceptions are abandonment, that is, which is to be abandonment, which needs to be abandoned. But there are many who are actually engaging in mere practice of observation of nothingness. We still find that a lot. Yeah.
Tela number tate gangi donu de yin reshi tere ta wo na den yo do tela number jeba ne jinjen ba wo ro de number jeba ne je ta wa wo so do ye gangi chi chi tan ye yin do re do gi no de ta ne ni number jeba da ro de number jeba sing ye dan da de kar sa na number jeba sing de jinjen ba ne jeba cho ko gore ro de number jeba se de ni je ta wa de ba me ba na number jeba ko gore so do.
So here the previous citation from sutra is explained here in this particular paragraph by saying, in the sutra passage, differentiations means distinguishing the diversity of conventional phenomena. The full differentiation means distinguishing their real ultimate nature.
Tujunga Petano Tanya Jodi Chetawa, the Chenba Selasona, Chetawa Sengetela, Gunzogi Chula, Chenba City, Tenton Bichula, Sheja and Road.
So here in the normally when we talk about the diversities of phenomena, is normally refers to the conventionality. It refers to the conventional phenomena, and then ultimate, refers to the ultimate nature. Refers to the ultimate nature of emptiness.
Maso ye no Sanjay Sagi Nanchin, Tanya Jodi, Chetawa to be Nanchin, the Chenba to be Nanchin and Tanya Jagri, Koron by Jadodi.
So then therefore, when we speak about the omniscience of the Buddha, the omniscience of the Buddha are said to be a two different kind. One is the omniscience of the Buddha, realizing diversity of conventional phenomena, and then the omniscience of the Buddha, which ascertains the ultimate nature of reality.
다 싫어도 dembi 이시지 또바단 제바 세만 dembi 세네 용수 또바단 양다바 또비 세네 용수 쉬어봐 임 용수 쉬어봐 파바 토메지 시에테 손도 아니 레 또바네 세와 또바 인라 쉬어봐네 쉬어봐 오 세만 dem바네 덴진 마이지 이지 프린제 레 프린제 바 오손.
So then here the Noble Asanga explains that the true examination is when conceptual attention possessed of wisdom apprehends a sign, and the thorough analysis means proper examinations. The examination means rough examinations, analysis, rough examinations. Analysis means detailed analysis. The apprehension of a sign does not here refer to the conceptions of the true existence, but rather to the distinguishing the abstract particular of an object. According to there is a both examination and analysis of both the real nature and the diversity of phenomena.
되지. 맞아. 이게 something that the look share the top of the shop saying the tiny payment with you. 맞아. 또 쉬니다 가데니세. top of the shop saying the chepa 가르잖아. topic 거라 일 라바이스 진주거래. 아니 쇼비 거라 일 희기 지정 맞아. 쯤바데 시바세데 맞아. 베비 타니라 니 쯤와서서나 하라는 거지. 시바세데 델레마 시자체로 로로. 되게 타니 적으로마도 괜히 로 한마텔에 니 심마데 데스 차하다 오지.
So we will find this term, very often in the many different teachings. There's one is what we call the conceptual attention, and then conceptual attention and analyzes. So this two term will be found very often in the many different teachings.
뒤진 가서 세만 접어서나 뒤진 세만 센센서나 니 댄스네 시작 적고로 뒤걸로 또바도 쇼바게 제비걸로 덴바 가서 덴바 세만 접어서인데 아니 베나 로 또바이나 또비일 프린제바던 쇼바이나 쇼비일 프린제바지로 고거마도 댄스로 고ጆ요 말소소.
So normally in the teachings when we find a statement by saying that apprehension of signs. So apprehension of signs normally refers to the apprehension of true existence. So, however, in this particular context, when we speak about the involves an apprehension sign, that doesn't necessarily referring to the apprehension or the true existence, apprehension of true existence.
맞아. 그런 게 지나이나 안에 담아 쉬우지 고로 맞아 또 쉬니기 빼자야 돼. 배나 컴고마세 그런 배는 되발라 라바다 아니 컴고마래 쉬와 땅에 아니 시라나지 로토스게 또 쉬니기 집아시요디 아니 시바 땅에 베콜은 되바생에 돼 아니 가르사 녀모기 타마와 아니 집바다 레가와 아니 가르데 전신다 같이 지여를 가지 녀모 된적이 시라기 나제다 어디 니 시자체니 시주체네 니 님이다 도비거라 니 코는 님이랑 도도르지마도 그막 어디 시주 메쟁인데 지라 도셔니 기체바데 지당한 뜻이야 근데 쉬우지 고로 사람 마시나지
그렇죠
대체
맞아 대비 휴가름지 이 휴모거베
더 되면 차사
So then here, so when this such statement that we will find very often, and in the different teachings, the conceptual attention and then thorough analysis or analyzation, thorough analysis. So the conceptual attention is normally the gross level of consciousness that actually engages with the different objects. For instance, when the meditators employing this conceptual attentions will not be able to see the detail of the delusions or the attachment of this desire realms, and when the practitioners actually shift their mental quality towards thorough analysis, then such practitioner will be able to see the diversity of defilements within these desire realms.
되지 대단하지 제타 진이 제바레레라 용서 또 받은 셔바 니니여도 송도 데레 도셔니보데 이제 따오치 도비로라 요레 진행부치 도메 로닌 인가리 요거를 송도아.
So then here the apprehension here it says now according to there is both examination and analysis of the both real both the real nature and the diversity of phenomena.
당 어쩌면 로를 유일 공지 때는 일 제바전도 로 코로나 거는 약간 가서 코로 제가 제바 제투고 말해봐도 이 간제질 로데 유일 조인데 걸라 아니 생기는 거는 주요도.
So here normally we're not paying much attention. Otherwise, whenever we engage in any kind of objects, so we are actually engaging with the two different mental qualities. One is, on the nature of the diversity of phenomena, and one is to the nature of actual ultimate phenomena. So we are actually observing both of these two.
네, 맞아요. 이카도 질러로 배나 니랑을 돈이 또 봐야 되면 계시비 거라. 니랑을 돈이 또 봐야 되다. 아니 대신바 나기 리피너다 타입이 거는 돈이 또 봐야 말이었어요. 양 일을 진기 주지 거는 소한테요.
So then we also mentioned during our previous teachings whether the questions of whether or not there is the realization of emptiness is possessed by the Shabaka and Pratigya Buddhas. Then the answer to that question, that we covered that by saying that, yes, they do have realization of wisdom realization of emptiness, but their wisdom realization of emptiness is not derived from the diverse reasonings.
다 단지 이놈 시지 뭐 장세 때서래 내가 장상이다 다만 로상이다 gond에다 템바스 파바군 근슈 진례 장 신내내 생지 바오 나도네 양다바 수소도 바오 시송바다레 시세와 송바오 지제 샴베 장 도대전례 송도.
So then here it says, in accord with the sutra unraveling the intended meanings, the clouds of the Jewel Sutra, Ratnamaka Sutra, also clearly states the serenity is one-pointed attention. Insight is a proper discernment. And also the Venerable Maitreya says in the ornament for the Mahayana Sutra.
추주민의 동방대 동방대 신내랑의 셰바샤 나돈랑의 대대나 넘바 쉐바 셰바샤 셰당 양다바네 발라테네 센라센은 조 셰당 쉐럽 넘바 지비셔 신내당의 라돈이시 양다비 띵에질라 테네 센조바 신내당 쉐럽 넘바 지비셔라 라돈의 송데 sondeson dona deta sombi gomba dejen de tewa dodi jen de tambino zeto sondo.
So now here it says the ornament of Mahayana Sutra, the Mahayana Sutra Alamkara Karika, which says, know as a path of serenity, abbreviating the name of a phenomenon, understand the path of insight to be analysis of its meaning, and based on a genuine stability and through discerning your attention to your mind and through differentiating phenomena, there is a meditative serenity and insight. So this states the stabilization of your mind on the basis of genuine concentration is serenity, and wisdom that differentiates phenomena is insight. So since this comments to the same effects on what those sutras say, it is inappropriate to construe those sutra passage in some other sense.
이제 최저민의 동부 생기지도 제단에는데 견다 도도 말만나지 신내의 일은 주요도 걸 미버 되는 주고레스 동네 뒤는 저거래서 아니 라통이 거라 이런 주비 거라 시바치는 저거래서 아니 도이 공바다 아니 제세 삼바고 공바니가 되래서 아니 도이 쳬셔야돼 아니 도된신의 샤그르마도 텔레제바 쳬마로와데 자와삼바 네텐제는 손바래서 근데 다지로만 다지 가는 손하나 이게 제신 담을 저한테 도이 담아래서 가신 입에 공바기 쳬였던 리디스에 거라 디스키 네텐제는 손이 저와.
So this is how Lama Tsongkhapa, citing from many different authentic sources, particularly to negate the standpoint, who are following the standpoint of mere nothingness, or the meditation of mere nothingness is ample meditation for one's spiritual development. So therefore, it's once again here, Lama Tsongkhapa is stating that this states the stabilization of your mind on the basis of genuine concentration is serenity, and the wisdom that differentiates the phenomena is insight.
Zhoba tangche dan zhewa dan, san yongsu inwa tangche dan zheyu, nishe yila xeba, miba tangche la mianba na, nangi tingin zinchi tsema nang, san joba dudin joba, as tangche yinaba dudin sedero. Jeba jiji do xeba tingin zinti shebi bane, de shene she shao. Laton kanshe na, shene yongsu gambi yila xeba, deni che, Jeta sambi chue teda niji tsema yila xie jeba tang raudu namba jeba tang chue raudu namba jeba raudu namba jeba ne jeba kepa tang shira jubi pa gang yinba dene latong xie xia wo sodo xie ngama nang to tunba sonde dene do tang jitsi niki gomba ngaji chene ngaji xela ki ngunzin la nyepa tenba zeto sodo tere. So
here again, Lama Tsongkhapa is, citing from many different sources and emphasizing on and identifying the nature of serenity and nature of insight, and explanation of nature of insight and nature of serenity, where it says. Also, the Asanga's Bodhisattva's label, Bodhisattva's Bhumi says, with your mind, definitely direct at an object of meditation, which is simply some inexpressible thing or its meaning, and attentive perceptions, free from elaboration and free from all mental distractions, takes up any object of meditations, then meditative serenity exists from the point at which the internal concentration stabilizes and focuses your attention on a sign. And for as long as it maintains a single extended flow and maintains concentrations, what is insight. So then here, what is insight? You bring to mind that signs of those very phenomena upon which you have reflected using the same attention with which you cultivated serenity. Insight is anything from the point of either differentiations, full differentiations, or the full differentiations of phenomena. And for as long as skills and wisdom are operating extensively. So this statement accord with those cited above. So it gives commentary to the same effect as the sutra and text of Venerable One. So it confirms that the certainty of foregoing identification of serenity and insight. Also, the second stage of meditation says.
tanda papa tome ge any jawa shamba dan doji ge combat chetawa jin de trene any shene da lato je any ngonda yile cheban je son dosres any jawa shambe doji bomba de shisha chene any shene da lato je ba de res ya doji shene da lato ge ngonda cheba je se dosres ne son yuri ya pani rimba son de ji sheje de time war.
So here, Lama Tsongkhapa is cited from the three different sources. From one, from the sutra, the nature of serenity and insight, and one from the Asanga and its followers, the nature of serenity and insight, and then one from the citing from Maitreya's Sutra Alamkara, by saying that Maitreya has mentioned, citing from the sutra. So there are very, how the, this is how the Lama Tsongkhapa actually, citing from sutra and sutra and shastras and so on, were, written by the great masters of the past.
제당어서 자와 샴바고보데 도이 베덩어도 제рем바데 아니 말에 도이 베덴제 아니 뭐도 기름바는 무슨 성에데 자와 샴바고모인 성으로 지 랑체치 기름바데 무슨 송션도는 베데 텐샤마 시신제 존노로라 뭐도 제рем바 선데 로이 제рем바데 유는 주시 기름바데 베데 텐샤데 자와 샴바고베 뭐데 소워제네 대용을 성으로 아니 또이 콘도서 조지를 뭐데 Maitreya
is the one who actually explicitly teaches the teachings on the stages of the path, or in other words, the method aspect that are not explicitly found in the teachings of the perfection wisdom. Although the perfection wisdom actually teaches the stages of the path, but they are not explicitly given. It's implicit teachings. So it is therefore, Maitreya is the one who actually, explicitly teaches the teachings of the stages of the path, which found in this Perfection Sutra. In other words, which is the implicit teachings of the Perfection Sutra.
시신이 도대로 뭐 지라고도 시신이 도저도 뭐 지게만 소유디 뭐데 대지 조전에 때마 동네 되는 저 뭐도기 동네도 로트스 베네데 근데 저와 상방고베 근데 뭐도지 받은 뭐데 대지 조전에 되는 근데 콘도스 조지 대차고도 시신이 도대로 뭐 지라고도
It is therefore the perfection wisdom is also known as the precious perfection wisdom. The precious perfection wisdom explicitly teaches on emptiness and implicitly teaches on the stages of the path, or the wisdom realizing emptiness is implicit teachings. Whereas in the teachings on the in Maitreya's teachings, it explicitly teaches the wisdom realizing emptiness, in the subjective wisdom realizing emptiness, and objective emptiness is taught implicitly. So, to someone who actually received direct teachings from the Maitreya is Asanga. Asanga is the only one in a human form who actually received the direct teachings from Maitreya. So now here, the stages of the meditations. The stages of the meditations says, so in this particular paragraph, it really explains precisely of what is meant by shine, or the serenity. Here it says, after you have quelled the distractions of external object, you rest and delighted and plain mind, which naturally and continuously engages in internal object of meditations. This is called meditative serenity. While you remain in serenity, any analysis of that very object is called insight. Take a 10 minutes break here.
Te kona nila nomba shioba kanyin ba ne ladon de shedang so da de. Goni baba de songe kama la shila ro. Kama la shila de ya ta goni bata son de so sa de ya shenge de pe de so sa rang pe le son sha de so do jang lo ji.
So this the second stages of meditation says, right? So the first stages of meditation and second stage of meditation, third stages of meditation, there are 3 different stages of meditation taught by Kamalashi. So these teachings are given, particularly given in Tibet for the Tibetan followers. His Holiness has often mentioned that most of the time. So here it talks about, differentiating the serenity and insight very precisely. At the end, what he says is, while you remain in serenity, any analysis of what very object is called insight.
Shiva Kanye Baden Haton said, any Haton Yena Rangi Tendu Chibi Shineji Jiache, any Shineji Kala, the Secha the Karayoba Tela, any Yugi Susujene, any Tindriki Tingin, the Sonde Jibi Tingin, the Senari Sherotegi, any Listen Shisha, the Wachiba and Jen Tungi Chabikala, any Shinegi Rimba Niba Haton del Padora.
So the Haton here in this is translated as insight. Haton, which means the special insight or higher insight, in other words. What is meant by special insight or the higher insight is in addition to meditative serenity, you gain a special development, which is called special insight. So that is what is meant by insight or the special insight. But the special insight must be, spring from the serenity, the mental serenity. The serenity must be achieved or actualized. On the basis of actualization of serenity, one then gain the special insight.
진해 여번 줘봐당 지다와 젠도 줘봐 라 넘버 메토비 존에도 줘봐네 신내지 미바오 신 진해바 여번 줘봐당 지다와 젠도 줘봐라 또바단 집이 존에도 줘봐네 라동이 미바오 시 지다와다 진진비 되나 메토번 줘봐 신내당 이 대니 라 넘버 줘봐네 라동도 손데 공제 내장 장된데 대시 네 신내지 미발라 까줘봐 지대 데이터데 넘버 메토비 존에노 대시 라통게 미발라 까줘봐 지코나데 넘버 또바다 지비 존에노 대시 대니기 미발라 까줘봐 니데 데이터데 무비 타당 공바 용수 줘봐 오 시에송비 공바 인노 균레 티발레 무비 타라 제타와다 제니바 니스 뉴베 신디 베하시바타 신에다 하도 레레랑 제타와다 제니바 니가르 미바유비 셰라니 미주고네 소소 메시 돈이 또비 신에장 유라 돈이 마도비 하통장 유도 습단다 되시 어디바 놀로 제닝에 좋아하더니 지작 얘들天上进来해로도 최대天上들어야 되는 것이
So here also the Ratna Karasasanti's instruction for the perfection of wisdom says, with regard to that serenity's object of meditation, it's a non-discursive image of something which is either a case of diversity of phenomena, or which represents the real nature. Insight's object of meditation is discursive image of something which is case of the diversity of phenomena, or which represents the real nature. So then, this states that meditative serenity is non-discursive stabilization on something among either the diversity or the real nature of phenomena. And that insight is analysis of either of those two objects. This is also the intended meaning of the passage in the Sutra, unraveling the intended meaning. O Bhagavan, how many objects does serenity have? The Bhagavan replied, one, namely a non-discursive image. And how many objects does insight have? Just one, a discursive image. How many objects of both are there? And two, namely the limits of existence and achievement of your purpose. Asanga's compendium of knowledge, Abhidharma Samuchaya, states that the limits of existence refers to both discursive and real nature of phenomena. So serenity and insight each takes both ultimate and conventionalities as object of meditations. Just as Ratnakara Satani explains above, thus meditative serenity and insight are not differentiated in terms of their prospective object of meditation. And for there is meditative serenity and serenity that knows emptiness, and there is insight which does not know the emptiness. Also, meditative serenity is your mind quitting a movement towards external object and then abiding on the internal object of meditations. It's a superior special seeing.
아니 너무 뭐 쉬우지 시제 정도 내가 치셔도 가트 버서서 아니 신내다 하도 내가 이미바 찔레미네 아니 지기 미바 되니라 제지데 자도제 아니 레센데 그리 지기 강라 미바자비 유되니라 제바제네 아니 시라 하도 차그리 얘나양 신내다 하도 내가 제다도 신내를 하도 예를 제다도 아니 가서 진행부터 신내를 하도 예를 미비고네 제바시가 말이에요.
So now here it just explains the difference between the special insight and the serenity is not met on the basis of object of the serenity and object of special insight, because there is a serenity that ascertains ultimate nature of reality, and there is a special insight that ascertains ultimate nature of reality, and vice versa. So therefore, only thing the difference is that serenity is single-pointedly remaining serenely on the chosen object, and whereas the special insight is actually engaging with its object analytically. So here, each and every phenomena, there are two different different natures. They possess two different natures. One is the ultimate nature. One is the nature of conventionality. So these two are also sometime in the text they mention that these two are known as the two extremes as well, but not the extreme of nihilism and extreme of eternalism. And sometime when we find a term extreme, that can also refers to the quality of the phenomena, quality being the ultimate quality and convention of quality.
그래서 거기 원래시에는 된들이 배나 데바투바 여에서나 답이 탈은 홍바로와 탈 마딘 홍샤레 데바투바 여에서나 아니 데바투바 메나 자원이네 메그르세디 아니 양산노제 근조되면 뭐 차로라 근데 제요리 탈은 마홍어디 지데 타세디 홍사지기 수지를 자고도.
So here now, if one accepts there is such things that truly exist, there is such things that exist truly, then one is falling into the extreme view of eternalism. And then if there's something that doesn't exist truly, then there shouldn't be anything that should be. There shouldn't be anything shouldn't be anything exist. So then with such standpoint or such viewpoints, you are falling into extreme view of nihilism.
되지. 근래들에 뭐비 타데 제다와데 진행바 니가 소거레스 아니 대소바만세 아니 신내다 하도 니가 예 넘바 카카시아스데 미비고는 카카시에 민도 와세데 땡아 수셰게 지레도.
So one thing that we have to remember is that differentiation between the meditative serenity and special insight is not met on the basis of their object.
되지 되게 봐도 지로 아니 대령 가서야 가서 나와데 저도 인자네 되게 메시지 좋아하려나 기타면은 아무 지는도.
So I'm wondering if you have questions, since given this is the last week of the month, and we'll take time to take some questions and answers.
Rinpoche, I have a question, and this may be something that other people in the group are interested in also. Geshe 10, as far as I know, is still in Tukdam. It's been more than 3 weeks since his death, and I'd like to understand better what this meditative state is and how he maintains it, what he does within this meditative state, and what will prompt him to leave it. How long is he likely to be with us, and how does Tukdam work? How does a master manage to maintain that state, and what does a master do while in that state at the time of death?
Kinla Kongson, the Pigeon, Tunda Sum Singaya, Todam Shushas. And the Todam Shuas in the Zo Kandaris, the Todam Shuas in the Karis. And the Kongo Savi Chele, Anti Todam Nal Shube Kablia, the Shulu Shutanch Kandaris, Kandash Shugoreste, the Shube Kablia, and the Gunjungli Tando Kazes Shugena, and then the Shube Kablia, Zo the Kalsure, Chipena. 가르는 다 대가블이 디슈야기 책임도 가려랬어요. 게임 다름지.
또 내가 전도스라다 동부도스 전도로. 당가 좀 뒤만이 치체 많이 와이나 코로이 뒤진 가서 쉬고요나 가서 교수보되게 아니 나시대 되고 다 로라바 창선되네. 아니 로 차유 로를 찍고를 투 로라바 창선 되도 로 차유 로 찍기네 거를 해야 돼. 강사 거기 또 많이 또 뭐도 계속 말해. 연수 줘 봐라. 동항이 뭐 수정부 수지래가 세상.
That's all. So here now, as long as someone who is not untimely death, then the dissolution of consciousness and physical elements will happen to all beings, especially the human beings. And so when our time of death, all our consciousness, beginning from the conceptual level of consciousness or the gross level of consciousness to the subtle level of consciousness, dissolve, respectively. And once all those gross level of consciousness or the indicative state of consciousness are, dissolving, and then finally it will all dissolve. In other words, all of those dissolve, which means all of those gross level of consciousness will become non-functional, and only the subtlemost consciousness will remain functions. It will functions. So at the very end of all of our life, when we were on the subtlemost consciousness, and the clear appearance will experience by all beings, all of us, regardless of whether the individual realizes emptiness or not, but the clear appearance will experience by all individual.
된주기 동상들을 돈이를 냥래 영이 계속 말이고 저도 주부게 내다 코로 있잖아요. 신의 차이 로 코로기 내가 되라 신의 차와 인자네 동사 지고마도 유도 제메 도비 거되라. 아니 뒤진가서 지 고소나한테라 소바게 돈바지게 냥래 나 돈바지게 과한도 유비 거이나 된주기 동상되니라 유문에게 돈바지라 과래 통에게 거 최네. 네 요새마 버세 그던도 타니 지고도 근데 된주기 거라 해비 거라 아니 고소나한테 냥래 야고 영에서 아니 배트 문신다고 지잖아요. 아니 유통바지 하는 문제잖아요. 아니 냐마자는 쇼를 송도.
So it is the nature of our mind when all those gross level of our consciousness are dissolved and remaining only the subtlemost consciousness. And that subtlemost consciousness, to the subtlemost consciousness, the appearance appears only vacuity, in other words, the pure empty. That doesn't mean that individual is actually, ascertaining emptiness. But this is the virtue of having only subtle consciousness. This empty nature will appear to all of this subtlemost consciousness. And those individuals who actually engages in the practice of Kusum Lamkar, taking the three bodies into the aspect of the path, if they have engaged in such practice, and then at the time of their death, during the subtlemost consciousness, they will ascertain emptiness, and that is where we call the meeting of the clear light, the mother of clear light, and the sun.
Tendriki Nambasha Bill Kala any Tusu Renton to us, Tegris, the Churchman. In a Nejubarani, La Pemba Pitch, Yoda, Michel Lora, Pacama Dindo. Tendrikola, you know, Mashubikola, any Chiselan, and to Tudon Chirochis, and Mrs. Sondi with Sajino Tendrio, Sixola Catan and Diana Soda. Mato Petting the House, Sugar, the Sugar Maris, Emidua. Shemidua.
So, however, there is no sudden time limits for those Tugdam. It varies. Some practitioners, they remain for a very long time, and some, weeks, and some couple of weeks, several weeks, and so on and so forth. But when they keep remaining on Tugdam for a very long time, then there is again its way of appealing to the individual who's on the Tugdam to now, just come out of, Tugdam state. For that to, in order to appeal that, and there is a verse that one can recite from the root text from this Guya Samaja Tantra, where there is a particular verse to supplicate to the Tugdam individual to come out of Tugdam state.
So Nika Chambuchin, the Valley Nika Cheshi careers and so Jonchinjilla Lasa, Pianco Kuni Chapa Jusha Jendo, Tedangone, Shana of Shooting, and so Tamepa Kandichi, the Boshi Chinchilla, Pigeon Shin the Try Lord, and you must soul and Piche Pumbuniban the Degris and Moncha de Soda, Mataya. Did the water shoe chairs and also Chapa Jusha, Nika Chamushina and
it's a very
Getamare.
It's a very unfortunate, now I hear very often here, as soon as the person is, identified as a dead person clinically, then immediately the person is carried out, and some of them, put into, ice, in a box or wherever the dead body belongs, and putting into that and just taking away and destroying the body and so forth. It's something that is very unfortunate, because according to the teachings of the Dharma, where it says that our subtlemost consciousness will remain with us, remain within us, at least for 3 days, even though that you completely you have ceased your functions of your brains and your nerve and channels and breaths and so on, but still the subtlemost consciousness remains for at least for 3 days. So which is not really good. The system over here.
So Peno that Jenset Shuyanda Chairman, the Roton de Yabu Shuyin Dadua, Meji Tonchinchilla Pomponima Song, about the non-Jani, and you go that the number the rich and the troning, about the degree, you must know Mazepata, Pomposhilla Telmari, the Jensayanda, the Tendrich, Micheda, that you see Moncho at the co patient social motto, Nyoto, the Kishias Kiamarwa. Peche Nashi Tamo, Dangas Nashi Rabat, and Nashi Tamo singing the area, Mare singing this. So
now, in Tibet, although they are, I'm not sure whether they have certain reasons, but they do keep their dead body without taking away from their home and touching them, without touching them for 3 days, letting that dead body remain in their wherever the person has died for 3 days. And I think it is something that's a very good custom that we need to keep the 3 days and the dead bodies should remain 3 days in the place where the person has died. So then here now, it is, we talked about the subtlemost consciousness that are remaining within us, which is something that is very obscure phenomena, right? None of us will be able to, are actually experiencing it. We experience only during the death. In the process of dying and during the death, we experience the subtlemost consciousness. And whether such subtlemost consciousness exists within us or not is something that is something, the question that is to be asked to ourselves.
당아서 드리기 좋아들 내저기 편도 다 되려고 시바 라파 뒤비가라 배선의 손바 나히게 치카텔라 베나 사 조하지데 드링이가라 가사텔라 나주 두스 요거를 생인데 나서 녀토는 통고야 하고고 다 드리기 라파마 뒤비가라 아니 신의 차이 로지 레그 말했으니 깨자되게 다 다다의 연수조가 시우 차도 치서샤 나다 콜로 규조돼서 당에지 대도 세비가라 다 배선의 시에 신의 차이 논센생이지데 여초사를 생에되게 So
here now, when we are going through this, and to answer to this question, that we already asked the question to ourselves by saying that such subtle consciousnesses exist within us or not. Are we be able to experience such subtle muscle consciousness? So in order to answer to such question, is now think about the actual dissolution that happens with us during the time of one's death. That's going through the dissolution of the four elements. During the dissolution of four elements, the individual will be able to experience those dissolutions, signs of the dissolutions, earth to fire to water to wind, and so forth. And the individual who is undergoing the process of dying can experience those signs, the internal and external signs. So, however, when it comes to the subtlemost consciousness, and this can now as clear evidence, because why those individuals who have already declared as a dead person clinically, scientifically, but at the same time, the individual is able to maintain his or her body very fresh and remaining there as if he or she is alive. And that is a clear evidence of some signs of remaining there within that individual in order to sustain, without undergoing decay of his or her body. So that is what we call the subtlemost consciousness, which actually, becomes the holder of his or her body, sustaining the body without undergoing decays.
아니 바디 때는 뭐부터 상제로서 외세 축구모든 제제바 대세 축구 외주 공부죠. 바도는 시도부 주민그 초경으로니나 소한데 소인데 아니 단지게 처와 외세 되니 베네름바 집이 단지 외세선에 돈용고서도 별로 지제 아니 뒤 대마타도 아니 마소 로도게 세고래 단지지를 바디론 비가라 노셔도 그 넘발라 아니 뭐부터 상제로서는 영자진의 소울에 되디
So there is a process of dissolutions and subtle consciousness, which becomes, vital source of sustaining the individual's body. It's explained very clearly in the Dharma, or the teachings of the Dharma, in the Tantric teachings, in other words. So, for instance, think about Lama Tsongkhapa, the composer of the Great Deities and the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment, which is the text that we are discussing on. And Lama Tsongkhapa is said to be actualize and gain his form of Sambhogakaya, or the enjoyment body, within the Bardo state, in the Bardo state, sorry. So therefore, it says that in the Bardo states, Lama Tsongkhapa has actualized the fourth stage of fourth stage of, meaning clear light.
This is the new that the Nigeria Mandoga. Yeah, do you the Nigeria should to send another page? Sugar said Mendua, and I thought Sugar bought the Latomane G. Goma Mazo on the Gulon Shawada, and Tots Davis on the real Messia, Jibutambara, young as you can carry in the Messia. Don't attach your shit to money.
So this is a brief explanation of how the Tugdam happens, when the practitioner is undergoing, when the process of dying, and to be able to maintain their body fresh and so forth. But then there's, as we mentioned earlier, there's no sudden, period that the sudden limits of their, days and time and so forth, how long they will stay in Tungtam state. So it is uncertain. But then I'm not very sure, prior to that, the practitioner's death, he or she may have some, motivations of remaining in Tungtam state for a certain period of time. But I'm not sure about, such individual will have such a motivation or not.
Courage, you are saying, like a kitchen, Korotomani Rala, Tonson Rala number, the Tangasu, Tony de Lagoon. Katushana, the Tony Tombani Lakoying and Mapura, Chungatina, Tombani Nabajadu, and a lot.
So it is, in brief, that during the Tugdam stage, the subtlemost consciousness realizes the emptiness. That is the completely single-pointedly, remaining in the meditative equipoise of emptiness. If individual is really a genuine practitioner, then he or she will be able to recognize when the emptiness appears. Therefore, we call Mabu Tepa, which means understanding the meetings of the mother and son.
Kero, Nason Beneto, de Celia and Tomani got data to Jamari, Tonsalton, Dengi, Mado, Naso in a Pena, so Tijitomani Loquai, mentioned in the region, Sari Sangi Lola, this 100 which you because begin also to Lola Kono Rashuye, the Rashichi Chayu Bicola, when it Teredo singing 2 years. Tangas you have Mabuches and the Richie Sheda, so get here sang it 2 years.
So it is like that, when we talked about meeting the mother and son, referring to clear light, the subject of clear light and object of clear light. So those two, meeting of those two is said to be the meeting of mother and son, subject of clear light and object of clear light. But then just think about when someone is actually having a proper understanding of emptiness, the meaning of emptiness. And when one is engaging in practice of meditation on emptiness, then we will reach in certain point where we can identify this is what is meant by emptiness. And this is a rough example of what is meant by meeting the mother and son. Recognizing that object and emptiness, appearing this emptiness to one's mind, on the subject of mind. That is what I mean by meeting the mother and son. So for the next question.
Yes, Rinpoche, those are very, very subtle teachings. And I have, I have gross, more not subtle questions. My question has to do with, aside from realizing emptiness directly and the clear light and, being able to realize some of the kayas, what is the purpose of the Tugden meditation? That's the first question. The second question is, why would somebody appeal to that person to get out of it? That's the second question. Third question, and how to support the person in Tugden. Those are my two questions.
tukdam shube kwa bakar sach tangbuti kwa bachi maybe the ine ta kansa sunya rong chani chi chiwe ne kabya tukdam shuk to ba ina and tukdam dele ya 당 당워쇼 시진 야야 상대 사이게 된데 동과 같이 버렸어야지 두담들이야 샹다 두담들 들레다 간다지 야 샹시세 쇼르바 두담들이 당고에 다야게는 손대 같이 쉬고 그랬어야지 근데 손버데 네 당한저게 델리아다가 두담 슈겐델리아 다지 펜도 가르쳐 도 그랬어야지 데레샤
아니요 데로 동보 거바 가르르스는 거바 데레세죠 그런 그런 동바질로 고아요 버데 마버 체도도 콘텔 데도 거라 다 맞소기 pen 당지 예보된 거 덴지 예보된 거 세네 덴주다 거 동바질로 고아레디 그런 거바지 라슈지 pen 가서 세다 덴바 제비 온도 다운나서 버다 세도 덴데 pen 동바질로 고아요 비토네 쟁이 제비 온도 다운 거바 가르르스나 네 그런 동바질로 고아요디 거 덴질라 수바네 이제 고바요리 마도 가사라니를 텔레데는 거반 내여서는 계속 김도아 그럼 요새 마버체네 대샤로 동반이 또 윤디 돈이 또 별로 되는데 대샤로 되게 덴슬을 내고로 거반 마도 가사 코로이 디치의 인세대 취해 말해 요즘 말해
so the actual we don't see any there's no such specific purpose but the individual who is actually remaining in this meditative equipoise on emptiness, and suddenly it is actually, combating with grasping at inherent existence. Although such individual who is on the stage of, remaining on the stage of subtlemost consciousness may not have any motivation of combating with grasping at true existence of inherent existence, but it is by virtue of being merely observing or remaining on the meditative equipoise on the emptiness will actually combats with the grasping at inherent existence or the grasping at true existence. So this is we could say the purpose, but there is no such individual, just like we was the person who is actually alive. When we are engaging in the practice, we may have motivations that my purpose of engaging in meditative equipoise on the emptiness is to fight with my, self-grasping mind, or the grasping at true existence or the inherent existence. We do have that, and then we go through the meditations. As we meditate, then according to one's motivations and one's meditation will become a tool or the weapons for eradicating the grasping at self and grasping at inherent existence and so forth.
아니 하버도 연주야 양심되지 평행에서는 시드는 편도치 보여주러 왔다. 또번 이제도 강정에게 강사지게 연주 변화가 소연의 대도 좀 또미 여바 대마탈로는 제와렘비 거비선의 제외되다 할래에 더 새로 표현소고 쉬워진 거예요.
So then suddenly if such individual will then reincarnate as a human being again, then there will be a great benefits, because the individual who has gone through this Tukdam state and has experienced the direct realization of emptiness and the wisdom realization of emptiness will be remaining in their continuum. And suddenly there will be a great benefits.
니바 telanga 소기 toda 주로체나 가르쳐 로그르세나 다 가서 다 건박하더니 소나 소소야다 다 내가 뭐 가생하서 내자 사람은 그저 몰라 조절이 지 공부존에 배치 샤고 가생이 지시오네 되제라 toda 주로체서는 되죠 되인식도 되는데도 마도 되듯이 뭐 쉬우지 지 종사대 때좀 되고서는 뭐 쉬우지 내가도 되게 제전에 마도 뭐쳐도 그런 게토이 뭐보다 찾아야 보이나 공부 그런 맞다 라시지 맞지보다 자샤 그래 야 공부 자선 되게 내가다고 뭐 쉬우지 종사대 않고 다서 다음에 또선 지금 말에 거기 뭐지 제거 인자네 되게 찾으면서 꼭 된지라 메시지에서 된다는 등의 여러마도 자체 구체다 그런 뭐 가서 토다 맞추바데 자샤로.
So this supplicating to them to come out of their Tudam state doesn't happen much. It is only when sometime at the monastery, when somebody is in the Tudam state, then there should be always people who should stay nearby, to guard the body and so forth. And then there's lack of time, and also there are many inconveniences faced by the people who are actually protecting the bodies and so forth. It is for this purpose then they supplicate to the individual who is in the Tudam state to come out of Tudam state and so forth. Otherwise, most of the time, if there's no inconvenience caused by the Tudam individuals in the Tudam state, then they will let them remain as long as they want and as long as they want until they naturally come out of Tudam states. So just let them stay. Yeah.
그치. 아니 미세게 토다 슝에랑 가서게 파편도 제거게 그럼 당가서 체다 되게 제시워다 그런 또 많이는 냠바자는 게나 그런 가서를 수편도 제르면 가서 파편도 제거게게요 말이야.
So there's nothing much we could support when in the Tukdam state. If someone who is really remaining on the Tukdam state genuinely, then just by remaining nearby them is benefit us, and we gain a great benefit out of it. So this is just a very brief, explanation of what Tukdam really means.
Thank you so much.
So we will have class on our whole month, February month. We'll have a class. Claire, did you hear that?
Yes,
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah, we'll have a
thank
class. Yeah.
you. So all Sundays.
Then the day I'm like Chidoba. Most than the game Chelia. The Pemodi Pigeon Jodi teach enough Jodi saw in the Micheda. I'm more Kimuche Jewish. The Machida Shish and the Dingmendo. The Moranchina and never a door. I'm a my man Dick Hasa. I'm the Sandy. Sandy. Direction. Bonnie.
Bonnie does not give you.
More never more than the Nazi is I never did. Not near day and the day on the name the Lemendo Mona. They get check the make pigeon toy chai and got those to some nothing. The day of a couple of so yamling culture or research. Then it's more Gavin someone. More Gavin couple Lucho Tango research.
Ludo.
Ludo, Lucho on the Pigeon Ludo segmento. Lucho Tango research. And then Idam in the checked up on the Mola in the Idam. Yeah, Tenji, and Laminanjo Congress, Molegon in Laminanjo Congress, Idam Molegon in Laminanjo Congress. The Machidan, the gate page in Chigues of the Moy. Carver Chowena said it. The more Rumche should have Jesus and more done that. Rumche come to shoes, 11 nothing, take you 2 months on that.
Yeah. Any lover is a lot. I need you shoot and draw your bed.
So, dumb me.
Antiamerica, so Jutta German Television, the Juton, not Jutu and the Chenmo. Jutta German and the Agenda, the Ducola can you to not Shani Jilil Hajimewa, and gonna Tombani. that the picture could the ledger in Jamarin, we say ever salada.
So any other questions? Okay.
They made a taste my dog.
Could ask a quick question? No.
Absolutely, please.
Okay. Well, hopefully it's quick enough. So it's kind of, it actually brought a question about subtle consciousness. So it's a good segue. Thank you for asking, Ken and Jocelyn. I guess I'm a little stuck on the continuation. It's my understanding that that all composite phenomena should have a substantial cause and a cooperative cause. So I'm wondering what the cooperative causes are for the subtle consciousness when there's no body.
Is this question right? Are you complete with that?
Yes, that would be, and my understanding, what I've heard is that there's the subtle wind energy. I guess I'm wondering if there's a way to, what kind of reasoning can be used, because I don't know anything about the subtle energy. So what kind of reasoning can we use to what's the word that I'm looking for, to account for the cooperative conditions after
Subtle
death?
consciousness?
Yeah.
Okay. The more the direction, me more doing you doing she shall provide. Direction, to jig it in Chingelia, go check Yalingi Jujiran, Lenzi checking Jujini, Jujini, Young Quarabas. The subtle consciousness, Manzo, and Manzugi and the Namshi Tamo. The Kanda Namshi Tamos name, the was sold the segmento Tamo Chigala like the Namshi. Namshi Tamo Dege, Nichika Yalingi Kukare, and the Kasure, Lenzi checking Kukares. Karisina, the Koragi, Subugi, Kanda Nubada, and the chick. Say Nubada, Kanda Nuba use to get Chaza go Gangalope, pick a Tim J. Saber was, to get Gangalolia, Chikuchele, Mev Chaber was, the Sunny Koi and the chick Nyalengi Kukare, and Lenji chicken Kukares, and it is Namja Tamudiki.
Nyele just and there one. So Tanta goes along, so you G la Shiba Tomo de Palani Bisuji Barwa. Palani Bisuji Patella, and long Japan Dibi Jen Shene, Jen Shibi Jenje, and Shiba Tomo de good Nisejiro. The Jen de Shiba Rabat is Relada. And Nyele the Garisana Korogi judging Hamatere Yebaris Lada. Shiba Sabachi Young Keshamare, Kotanta Negosal, Nikudia Sorich. Nikudia said, Anshiraba, Shiba Rabba Chanson Dubi, Long Chanson, Ninkan and Dubi Jensen, and it co insitua. Jensen, Rabban Dubi Jenshaware, and Nyelete Korogi judging Hamatere.
So the subtle consciousness, the cooperative cause of subtle consciousness is a complete dissolution of the gross level of wind energy, or the energy, gross level of energy, because it is when we talk about someone with a subtle consciousness, it is not something that doesn't exist, and we just subtle consciousness just at the time of death it just appeared from nowhere. This is not, however, it's not so, right? Subtle consciousness is always there within us. It is remaining in a dormant manner. It is not actively functioning, because at the time of our, during our lifetime, all those gross level of consciousness are actively functioning, but by virtue of active functioning of our gross level of consciousness, the function of subtle level of consciousness will already stop. It will remain in a dormant manner. It will not be able to function. There's no function, but it's still there. But as a result of dissolution of all this gross level of consciousness and the gross level of wind energy, then that causes the subtle level of consciousness coming into, becoming active. So there is in other words, the dissolution of the gross level of winds and energies are the cooperative condition of activating our subtle consciousness. And of course, then when it comes to the substantial cause of our subtlest consciousness is the first moment of subtle consciousness will be the substantial consciousness. The second moment of consciousness, subtle consciousness, and the second moment of consciousness become a substantial cause for the third moment of subtle consciousness and so forth. It is continuity of the same substantial consciousness will become substantial cause for the first, second, third, and so forth.
아니 게자 간사바 대체비 대손사비 교환의 쇼지든 털어대네 아니 신의 감비 아니 때네 아니 땡엔제 템보기 때네 싫어기 제바셔네 아니 땡엔제다 싫어니게 싫어송되게 냥설에네 아니 림보모도 봐 조비 상제적고 영원히도 타고네 지전에 작은 아니 시에네 마연되는 수비에네 라마 상제노제 신조로도수 선에네 모아도 마차다.
So now let's do our dedication. So by spending 2 hours paying attention to receiving these teachings on serenity and insight, or tranquil abiding and insight, I would say. So by means of listening to such teachings, may I be able to actualize the serenity, will stabilize our meditative concentrations, will then be conjoined by the special insight or Haktung. So in other words, by means of the practice and the conjoined practice of these two, serenity and special insight, may I be able to gain the state of enlightenment for the benefit of all other beings. May all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions please bless me to be able to do this.
若月也觉明报谁先呢？教月担保有人谁就接，担保人间就给马脚步，悄悄娘把绝别说的呢，你觉前辈一路就不一。遍地的塞我写不说，塞天教育面容真的呢。列住上主浪觉人别讲，唐的浪觉一浪别的心，教育日报人都终究结。老总主编天津主席节，给进世界门当门面给，切入更多教育好不易，朗动真往忙就结。刚才天宝求了去去，最近住了尊宝地云彩，土地能热到都主席节，这些将是手有就一起，就在那面国菜烧点钱，那个城里说着也不懂，老张点别正面扫松节。若月明色大度念旧节，光着热月过夜心高诉，偏当的我马的永远的，现在在我的人叫作业，小别身体不念旧节，将别八月知道千不懂，更多让我这样的人的。跌倒跟着就是道路上，给我跌倒当街绕多我，就从西边叫我当街街，我刚了就多我不的，大金月圆早晚的跟着，容不学学绕多我。哎呀，出去，天就。